we're making twice baked potato casserole, y'all. Ooh, these things are good. Go ahead and get that oven preheated to 400, and then ideally you want to use about 6 really big potatoes, like big bacon potatoes for this. But I did not have those. I had a bag of potatoes, so I just grabbed a few out, and I'm only going to make half of this recipe, but I'm going to put the full recipe down in the description. So once you get your potatoes picked out, go ahead and get them scrubbed up real good, because I'm going to use those skins for something another time. So just get them cleaned up real good, and then you want to get them dried off. Now, I always like to inspect my little potatoes, because you know these potatoes are going to have a bad spot in them the majority of the time. So just find any little bad spots and just cut those out. I mean, unless you like the bad spots, then leave them in there. If you don't care, leave them in there. It don't make no difference. But I cut mine out because I'm weird about that kind of stuff, y'all. So just go through here, get all your little potatoes cut up however you want them. And then we are going to stab them with a fork. Y'all, these poor little potatoes, just stab them a whole bunch of times on both sides, because we want to make sure they cook, you know. So once you get your little potatoes all, look, I had to move off the pan there, y'all, because it was slipping everywhere. You know how me and that parchment paper do. So then you're just going to go ahead and put a little olive oil on each one of your potatoes. Now, if you don't have olive oil, don't go out and buy it special. Use whatever kind of oil you got. Avocado oil, canola oil, whatever you got. Just oil your potatoes up, y'all. Make sure you get both sides good and greasy. And any of those little spots you cut out, you know. Just get it all oiled up. Oh, Lord, look at me. I can't even hold on to it. It's so greasy. So once you get it all greased up on both sides real good, you're going to go ahead and season these potatoes up. Now, I use anti-no-nos. If you've never used anti-no-nos, you got to get you some. Now, I couldn't find mine at the Walmart, y'all, so I had to get on Amazon and get it. But it wasn't that expensive, and it's nothing but sea salt, garlic, and onion. So you just want to get your potatoes seasoned up real good. Now, y'all, potatoes have a front and a back, so make sure you flip them over and season both sides of them. Rub it all over. You don't want a big old hunk of salt in one spot, and you don't want some spots to not have any seasoning, because, you know, I told y'all that potatoes don't have no flavor. You got to add some flavor to them. So once you get the one side all seasoned up, go ahead and flip them over and get your back side all seasoned up. Now, y'all, these potato skins are going to be delicious. I'm going to do something with these potato skins in another video, so y'all just be watching out for that. But if you don't keep the potato skins, or you don't like them, if you don't want to season them, don't do it. But if you like potato skins, go on and get them seasoned up real good. Now, look, scoot your little potato to the middle so it don't get overcooked on the edge. I don't know if that's the thing, y'all, but you know what? We're going to go with it. So you're going to pop them in the oven for about an hour. And while they're cooking, I went ahead and got all my other stuff ready. I went ahead and got my green onions all chopped up. I am cutting up my cheese into cubes, because you know I'm going to use my fancy shredder. And they got to be cut into a little bit smaller pieces for that. And of course, as always, I will link the video up above for how to use this shredder. It's really neat, y'all. If you don't have one, you got to get one. But I shredded up that whole bowl in like 5 seconds. So then we're going to go ahead and get our bacon chopped up. Now, y'all, this bacon, you see right there? You saw that, didn't you? You're going to see that a few more times, because this bacon was so hot I was burning my fingerprints off, y'all. I don't know why I'm so impatient, and I think I can't wait 5 seconds for something to cool down. But anyway, I didn't, and I burnt myself. I paid the price, y'all. I paid the price. So just go on and get your bacon all put to the side, because, you know, you got to have bacon. So after an hour, this is what our potatoes look like. Now, if you'll notice, these potatoes are still steaming, y'all. Because once again, I didn't realize, well, you know what, I knew, but I didn't think it was going to be as bad as it was. So I was trying to peel my potato skins off, but then I was just like, I got to give that up, because I can't do that with this knife, because I'm burning the rest of my fingerprints off. Like the 2 prints I had left, y'all, the potatoes took those. So anyway, you're going to dig out the middle of these potatoes, and they come out real easy, y'all. So go ahead and just dig those out, get them put over there in your bowl, And look, I even cut them in half, y'all. Y'all saw that, don't you? So they would try to cool down just a little bit. They didn't. They did not. Trust me, y'all, on this one. Let them potatoes sit for a little bit, a few minutes anyway, and let them cool down to where you're not going to just burn your flesh off, your bones, out there trying to peel a potato. So anyway, you're going to get all your potato insides in this bowl. Now, at this point, if you like chunky mashed potatoes, you do not have to get out your hand mixer like I do. But you can get your masher. You can just mash them with a fork. You can leave them just like that if that's how you like it. Now, because I'm doing a half recipe, y'all, this is what these measurements I'm telling you now are for. But remember, the full recipe will be down in the description box. So I had let that butter sit out for a little while and get soft. And I just went ahead and, threw it over in there and just kind of cut it up so it would go ahead and melt a little faster. And then I am going to add half of this 8-ounce container of sour cream. And you just every time you add something, y'all just mix it up in there. And so you get it all good and mixed up, and then you're going to grab your milk. Now, you can use whatever kind of milk you want. It doesn't make any difference. Mine's just regular old 2% milk. And you just pour a half a cup of that in there, and then you just going to mix them up to whatever consistency you like your potatoes. I like mine pretty smooth, so that's what I did. Now, y'all, at this point, please taste your potatoes, because, again, potatoes do not have any flavor. No seasoning. So I added a heap more of the anti-no-nos in there to make sure that my potatoes were good and seasoned up, because you will have wasted your time if you cook these potatoes and you didn't put any darn seasoning in them, because they're not going to taste good when they come out of the oven, y'all. And you can't add it after the fact. So now we're going to add some green onions, however many you like. I like green onion, so I just put, a big handful in there. And then you're going to add half your bacon. And then, go by the measurements if you want to, y'all, but I just put me a little handful of cheese over in here. That cheese we've cut up in that bowl, I went ahead and put it in a big Ziploc bag, of course. So you're just going to put your cheese over in there. See, that's just what is that, half a teaspoon? That ain't much cheese, y'all. Just mix it. Just don't look at it. Just don't look at it. Just mix it all in there real good. Look how Christmassy it looks, y'all, with that bacon and that green onion, just red and green. And look, somebody told me that I needed to get bigger bowls. I have bigger bowls, these right here, y'all. So I listened and I got them out this time so I wouldn't fling potato all over my counter when I was using my hand mixer. See, y'all, I can learn too. So anyway, once you get it all mixed up, you're going to spray your pan. And this is my little 7x11 pan because my son still has not brought my 8x8 pan back from his house. So you're just going to smooth it out the best you can. And then you're going to take just a tiny little bit of cheese right here. Or however much cheese you want, y'all. Y'all know I'm just playing. But this is probably about a half a cup on this little small pan. So you're just going to add your cheese, and then you're just going to sprinkle your bacon right over the top of that. And then you are going to put this in your oven on 400 for about 20-25 minutes. And that's it, y'all. That's it. It's easy. Look at there. Woo, that's pretty. Now, these potato skins, like I said, they're going to be in a video coming up. So y'all make sure that you subscribe so you can watch that video later. So when they come out of the oven, go ahead and sprinkle you a little more green onion on there. And y'all, that's it. These things are so dadgum good. This is what we're going to need for this macaroni and cheese. And I think I have finally found the perfect recipe, y'all, because this stuff sure is good. So we're going to start by getting our noodles boiled. Now, of course, I could not find macaroni noodles, so we're going to go with shells and make us some shells and cheese this year. But just go ahead and get your noodles all boiled up. And once you get your noodles cooked, you're going to go ahead and drain them really, really good. Get as much of that water out of there as you can, because we don't want we don't want watery macaroni, y'all. So just get your noodles all drained, whatever kind of noodles you ended up using. And then you're going to spray a 9x13 pan with a little cooking spray, because we got a lot of cheese and we don't want it to stick. And then we're just going to dump our noodles over in that pan. Now, we're not ready for these yet, so we're just going to sit these over to the side and get some other stuff done. But you can go ahead and get your oven preheated to 375. So now we're going to get our cheese shredded up. Now we're going to use equal parts of the sharp cheddar and the Monterey Jack. Now, this shredder, y'all, this thing is the best thing ever. I will link another video for y'all where I'll show you how to like take it apart and all that kind of stuff. If y'all want to go look at that, I'll link that up above. But just go ahead and get your cheese all shredded up. And then once you get that done, you're going to get your Velveeta cut up. Now, your Velveeta, it's not that really big block of Velveeta. It's the smaller blocks, the 16-ounce block. So, but you're only going to need 3/4 of it. So I just cut it in half and then cut one of the halves in half. If that makes sense, you'll see. But anyway, 3/4 of this Velveeta is what you're going to need. And then we're going to need to go ahead and just cut it into cubes because it's going to be a lot easier to melt it, if it's in smaller pieces. So this is the cheese that we're going to need. Now, in the sauce that we're going to make, you're only going to use half of each of those shredded cheeses and then all of the Velveeta. So we're going to start out our cheese sauce by making us a little roux. So if you've never made a roux before, this is how you do it. Pretty much. It's different for different recipes, but you get the gist of it from this. We're going to put 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 tablespoons of flour. Now make sure you melt that butter first. You don't want to dump this all in there at the same time. Get your butter good and melted, and then you're going to add your flour in. And you're going to need to stir this constantly, y'all. Do not walk away from it. But you're going to have to stir it constantly for about 2 minutes because you want the flour cooked, but you don't want the flour to burn. So just keep on stirring it until, that about the 2-minute mark. But just, again, don't let it burn. And I'm cooking this over a medium heat. Don't turn this up on high because you will burn it. So once you get your roux cooked for about a couple of minutes, you're going to start adding in your evaporated milk. Now go ahead and just add a little bit. You don't want to dump this whole can over in there. You're going to get that dumped in there a little bit, and then you're going to mix it, mix it, mix it, because you don't want this to be lumpy, and it will lump up if you put too much and you don't whisk it enough. So just whisk it around, and when it starts to get a little thick and it starts to kind of bubble, go ahead and add you a little bit more milk, and you're just going to keep doing this until you get all of your evaporated milk added in there. Now, make sure that you are scraping the bottom of that pan with that whisk because you don't want this to stick, and it will try to because y'all is milk. So just get it all whisked in there. And like I said, this is a process. This part with the making the roux and adding the milk and then adding the cheeses is going to take you a little bit to do. Not forever, maybe 15 minutes or so, but it's going to take a little while. It's not like a real quick process. So once you get your, quote unquote gravy part made, you're going to go ahead and start adding in your Velveeta and just add a little bit at a time and just stir it constantly because, again, that cheese is going to try to stick to the bottom of that pan if you don't stir it constantly. And then you're going to add in half of your sharp cheddar cheese. And in the beginning, I wasn't going to originally add the Monterey Jack into this cheese sauce, but I end up doing that in just a minute. Now I'm adding paprika. You don't have to add paprika, but it makes your cheese sauce a little bit more cheesy looking rather than just kind of milky looking. And the lady where I found this recipe, she used some kind of coloring in hers, but because she didn't care for paprika, but I like paprika and it doesn't matter to me, so I dumped it in there. So then I just added a little bit of that Monterey Jack in there at the end. And you're just going to cook this, y'all, until your cheese is all melted. Now, once your cheese is all melted, you're going to take that cheese sauce and we're going to dump it over our noodles. Now, it's going to look like it's way too much liquid, but it's not. Trust me, it's not. It's going to soak all that cheese sauce up in the oven. So you just going to dump that over top of your noodles and then just mix it up real good. Make sure all your little noodles are covered because you don't want to end up with a big crunchy noodle at the end. So just get all your noodles all covered up in your cheese sauce, which is not hard to do because, like I said, it's a lot of liquid. And then you're going to take the rest of the cheese. So this is that half of the sharp cheddar and half of the Monterey Jack, and I just mixed them together. And then you're just going to sprinkle this all over top of your pan. Now, you can add a little bit less cheese if you don't like as much on top, or you can add a little bit more if you don't feel like this is enough. You can, it's your call. Do however you want, but this was the perfect amount for me. So once you get your cheese all sprinkled over top, you're going to cover this with foil and then you're going to pop it in the oven for 10 minutes. And after that 10 minutes is up, we're going to take it out and we're going to take the aluminum foil off of it. And then we're going to put it back in the oven uncovered for another 30 minutes. Yep, there it is, y'all. Back in the oven. And here she comes out. Y'all, does that not look so good and cheesy? Look at there. It's still bubbling. Look at the cheese just bubbling up through there. Oh my goodness. It smells so good and it tastes even better, y'all. I promise you're going to love this. It is so dang good. So, I'm going to scoop me up a little bowl so I can taste it for y'all. Because I can't tell you it tastes good if I don't actually taste it. But y'all, this is definitely going to be a staple around here for the holidays. Now, I ain't making this when it ain't a holiday because it ain't nothing but me and the cat around here and we can't eat all that. So, the first thing that we're going to do is dump our box of Jiffy cornbread mix in our bowl. And you can go ahead and preheat your oven to 350. Then we're going to melt that one stick of butter. And I go ahead and add the butter in first because it's so hot. I don't want it to like cook those eggs when you add them. So just go ahead and mix your butter in there and then dump your 1 can of cream corn. And then you're going to use 1 can of regular corn, but make sure that you drain the regular corn before you put it in here. And once you get that added in there, I like to try to mix it up kind of in between adding everything because that Jiffy cornbread mix tends to clump up and get lumps in it, or it comes with lumps in it, I should say. So just make sure that you're mixing this really, really good. And then you're going to add in your 2 eggs because your butter's cooled down by this point, y'all. So it's fine. Go ahead and add your eggs. And then get those busted up and mixed around in there real, real good. Because you also don't want a big blob of egg, when you make your cornbread either. So just get that mixed up really, really good. And then the last thing that we're going to add to this is going to be our 1 cup of sour cream. And y'all, I've seen other recipes where people use like cream cheese in this. I've never used cream cheese in mine. If y'all have ever used cream cheese, let me know in the comments because I'm kind of curious as to how that would taste. But when I was mixing this up, I got to thinking that what would really be good in this, y'all, is if you put one of those cans of like the diced green chilies. I bet that would be so good in here. Give it a little extra something, almost like a little Mexican cornbread, kind of. I don't know, y'all, but it sounds good to me. And I think that I'm going to try that next time I make this. Let me know, too, if any of y'all have ever tried adding the green chilies to this, because I bet it is really, really good, y'all. But anyway, so once you get everything mixed up really good, you're going to go ahead and grease your little pan. Now, I normally do this in an 8x8 pan, but my son borrowed it to make fudge the other night, y'all, at his house, and he forgot to bring it back. And that's the only 8x8 pan I have. So anyway, we're going to use this one. And I think this is maybe a 7x11 or something. It's still a little small pan. And then, of course, at this point, I realized I'd never added salt and pepper to this. So, and that's all I add to this as far as seasoning, y'all, just a little bit of salt and pepper. But just make sure if you do it like this and you do it after the fact, Just make sure that you get it mixed up real good because you don't want, one little part that has a ton of salt and pepper and other parts that don't have any. So just get it mixed up really, really good. And then I put mine, well, look at there. Just dropped a spoon down in there. But anyway, I put mine on a cookie sheet because it was awful close to the top and I wasn't real sure if it was going to puff up enough that it was going to go over. And I didn't want to have to clean that out of the bottom of my oven. So I just sat it on a cookie sheet. And you just going to pop this in the oven, y'all, for about 45 minutes. Actually, mine went a little bit closer to an hour. But just put it in there, start at about 45 minutes, and just watch it because you just want to get it done and get it, a little browned on the top. But y'all, this stuff is so dang good. And it's really, it's soft. It's not dry, like a cake would be, or, like a regular cake or something, or like a regular thing of cornbread. But it puts a good little crust around the outside. I know y'all saw it, but, of course, I dumped it in there where you can't see it. But it's really good, y'all. I'm going to have to get some right here so I can taste it for y'all. Because, I don't want y'all to eat anything that, that don't taste good. So I just scooped me up a little bowl there and had me a taste, and it was really good, y'all. Y'all, this recipe was almost so easy I didn't want to even put it in here, but I thought, you know what? If we like it, maybe y'all would like it too. 3 ingredients. You're going to preheat your oven to 350, and then you're going to spray whatever size pan for however many of these things you're going to make. And I just made like 8 of them because my son wanted them and he was going to stop by after work and come get them. So I just made a few that he can take, home to his house and share with his friends. But you just put these in your little 9 by 13 pan or whatever. I think you put it on a cookie sheet if you want to, y'all, because it really don't matter. But you're just going to put these in here. And also, it does not matter. These were still a little tad frozen. You can cook them frozen because they come in the freezer section if you didn't know where they were in the store. But you can cook them from frozen. I had these. I let them sit out in the refrigerator for a little while before I cooked them. So they were mostly thawed out. But that'll just be, just adjust your time because you're just pretty much just warming them through. So you're going to add on top of these little yam patties just a little bit of brown sugar. Just enough. It looks like a whole lot, y'all, but that's not. You just kind of put a little thin coating of brown sugar on top of it. And then you're going to take your butter, and I just cut mine, into a couple of little pieces, just thin and, little thin pieces, but enough, for however many I'm making. And then you're just going to take them little pieces of butter and sit them right on top of your brown sugar. And that way, when that butter melts, it's going to melt right on down into that brown sugar and it's going to go all down into those little yam patties, y'all. Now, I don't know how y'all's kids were or your grandkids. My son would not eat a sweet potato to save his life. Do you hear me? Hated them, could not stand them. But these he would eat. Now, it's probably because they was covered in butter and sugar, and they do taste like a dessert. But y'all, they are delicious. You just stick these things in the oven for about 30 minutes, and then they come out just ooey gooey. They make almost like a little syrup in the bottom of the pan, but they are sweet and just I don't know what it is, y'all, but honey, they are so sweet. Kind of like if you make like a sweet potato casserole, you put the brown sugar, the butter, and all that. But these things just melt in your mouth. If you haven't ever made these, you've got to give them a try because they are so delicious. And we're going to start with Mama Kim's brown rice. This stuff is pretty simple to make, just a few ingredients. We're going to start by chopping up an onion and make sure that you preheat your oven to 350. So we're going to melt 1 stick of butter and then add our onion to that. And we're going to just cook that until your onions are, translucent, until you get your onions as done as you want them. And y'all stop looking at my streaky stove. I didn't realize that cleaner was going to streak that bad. So y'all just pretend like you don't see that, okay? All right. So then we're just going to season this up a little bit with some salt and pepper. Just do this to taste however much you like. And then we're going to continue to cook that around until that butter is completely melted and our onions are done. And then we're going to add 1 cup of instant white rice. Now, we're going to cook this around. We're going to brown it a little bit. I still don't think that's the reason we call this brown rice. I think it's just because it comes out brown, but don't quote me on that. So we're just going to cook this around until you get a little color on your rice. You want to just get it done a little bit. And then once you get that all like you like it, we're going to add our 1 can of beef consomme, not beef broth. It's got to be beef consomme. And I guess that's how you say that. If it's not, don't tell me. Just let me be embarrassed in silence over here. Then we're going to add 1 can of water. And then go ahead. I don't know if I said make sure that you preheat your oven to 350. And then in a greased baking dish, we're going to add all of our mixture. And it looks like a whole lot of liquid, y'all, but trust the process. It's going to soak it all up. And we're going to cook this for about 45 minutes. Just watch it because everybody's oven is a little bit different. You just want to cook it until all that juice is soaked up. And I think it took mine about maybe close to an hour. So just watch it. And y'all, this is what it comes out looking like. And look, if you don't like all the onion, you can put less onion. You can put smaller onions. I don't know if you could leave the onion out because I don't know. I just feel like it tastes so good in there. But do what you want. And, I had to make me up a little bowl of it because as soon as the camera went off, I had to eat some of this because it was smelling some kind of good, y'all. So next up, we're going to do sweet potato casserole. And I know that everybody has their own way of making sweet potato casserole, but I could not find my recipe, y'all, the one that I've used for years. So I dug around on the internet and tried to find what I could come up with that was as close to mine as I could get it. So you're going to start out with 2 40-ounce cans of Bruce's yams. You're going to want to drain those as good as you can. Then you're going to add 2 tablespoons of melted butter and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon and 1 egg. Now, you can add a little brown sugar to this if you want to. I feel like it was sweet enough without it, so I didn't add any. And I like mine smooth, so I got out my hand mixer. You can do it just with a masher if that's what you've got, if you like yours and you don't mind a few lumps in it. But like I said, I like mine pretty smooth, so I got out the little hand mixer. So make sure you preheat your oven to 375 for these. Then you're going to just put your mixture in this, it's an 8x8 pan, and just smooth it out. And then we are going to put it in the oven for about 20 minutes, roughly, just until it gets warmed all the way through. So while this is cooking in the oven, we're going to put our topping together. Now we're going to start out with 1/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup of brown sugar, a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and 1/8 teaspoon of salt, which I think I cut out, but it does call for 1/8 teaspoon of salt. And then it also called for a half of a stick of melted butter. Now, personally, I think this comes out a little bit too runny. I wanted my topping a little more crumbly. This is more of a smooth kind of I don't know, a wetter topping. So I tried adding a little bit more flour and I thought, Lord, I'm going to add the whole bag in here by the time I get it where I want it. So I just kind of said, you know what? We're going to roll with it. We're just going to go with what it is. So after you get it all mixed up good, you're going to add a half a cup of chopped pecans and just mix this up real good. And it does get a little bit thicker as it sits, while you're waiting on the sweet potato part to come out of the oven. So once you get your sweet potatoes out of the oven, you're going to add a little layer of marshmallows. You're going to add that pecan topping mixture. And then you're going to add another little layer of marshmallows. I think we could have done with 1 layer, but that's okay. More marshmallows, it's not going to hurt anybody. So then you're going to pop that back into the oven for about 8 to 10 minutes until you get your marshmallows as brown as you want them. And that's it. It turned out really, really delicious. Like I said, I think I would change the topping to make it a little more crumbly, but other than that, it still tasted really good and it did just fine. So the last thing that we're going to do is homemade yeast rolls. Y'all, I found these on another YouTube channel and I wrote everything down and completely forgot to save the video. So I'm going to try to go back and find it and I will link it down below if I can find it. I hope I can find it because it was really good and I definitely want to give him credit. So what we're going to do is start out with a half a cup of warm water, about 110 degrees. And then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar. He says you can add 2 to 3. I didn't want mine to be too sweet. I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference. So I just went with 2 tablespoons of sugar. And then you're going to add 1 packet of yeast. And his recipe also called for the rapid rise, and I didn't have that. So I just went ahead and went with the regular yeast. And I just left this on here. So if you don't know what yeast does or you're not sure, this is what it's going to do when it's ready. You're going to let it sit for about 5 minutes and it's going to activate that yeast. So once your 5 minutes is up, you're going to add a half a cup of room temperature milk, a teaspoon of salt, and you're going to mix that all around real good. And then you're going to add 1/4 cup of oil. So once you get that all good and mixed up, you're going to add your 2.5 cups of flour. And y'all make sure that when if you decide you're going to make those, and I hope you do, give yourself plenty of time. Make sure that you have a lot of time to get these actually prepared. But the actual preparation process is not difficult. It's very easy. It's limited ingredients and it's not a whole lot of work. But you're going to have to let this stuff rise 3 different times. So just make sure you give yourself enough time to do that so they're ready when you need them. So once you get all your ingredients mixed up, if you'll notice here, the dough looks completely different. And that's because I needed this for a few minutes before I realized I wasn't recording. So you just are going to do this for about 10 minutes. And you can see the texture is way different than it was when we first mixed it up in the bowl. So, and I put wax paper down because I have darn tile on my countertops, which I don't know who thought that was a good idea. But so I just put some wax paper down so I don't have to deal with the tile. And he says if you poke your dough like that and it kind of bounces back at you, then it's ready. So once you knead this around for about 10 minutes, you're going to put it in, you're going to oil your bowl, and then you're going to stick your pretty little dough ball right down there in that bowl. And then you're going to put a little towel over it and don't turn your oven on, but leave your oven off, turn the oven light on, and sit your covered bowl in the oven for about an hour. And then once you bring it out, you see how much bigger that got, how much it rose. So you're just going to poke it down or punch it down or whatever. It looks like moon craters, but anyway, you're going to just poke it down and then you're going to cover it again and put it back in the oven for 30 more minutes. And then you're going to see it rises back up again. So once you've done this and let it rise twice, you're going to take it out of your bowl and you see it's not sticky anymore. You're going to take it out of your bowl and just, kind of knead it around a little bit until you get all the air out of your dough. And then once you get that done, you're going to I wish I had one of those fancy little dough scraper. What are they called? I don't know if it's some kind of scraper, y'all. But I didn't have one, so I just took a big knife and I hacked mine. So you're going to want to it's going to make 12 rolls. So I cut it in half and then I cut it in half again. And somewhere in my brain, I thought I was about to cut this into 3 pieces, and I don't know why, because I knew that wasn't going to work. So I just kind of balled it up, and then that didn't work either, y'all. So then I was like, well, let me stretch it out so I can I wanted to kind of try as close as I could to get these pieces even so I wouldn't have a bunch of wonky rolls in my pan. So I just rolled these out and now we're going to cut these into 3 pieces. And that way we'll have our 12 rolls. So you're going to get your little greased bacon dish, and then we are going to make these rolls. Now, when I started doing this, I realized that y'all were not going to be able to see half of what I was doing. And look, watch right here. Don't do that. Don't do that, y'all. Don't roll it like a cookie. This is a roll. So what he did, and it looks so cute, is just kind of pulled it around and kind of tucked it, kind of tucked it there under the bottom. And his looked so cute. So then I tried to do that. So did I do it perfect? Yeah, probably not. But you know what? I did the best I could. And we still ate them darn rolls, y'all. So once you get, your dough all cut into your 12 pieces, hopefully a little bit better on the size than I did, because yeah, mine were not the same size. They were not uniform. But you're just going to roll your little dough into balls, and when you get your little balls all made, you're going to cover this again, and you're going to sit it back in that oven with the light on for about 45 minutes. Now you're going to preheat your oven to 370, and then you are going to cook these rolls for about 15 to 17 minutes. And this is what they look like when they're done. Now, I will tell you, when I took these out of the oven, I really thought I had done something wrong because they felt really hard on the top. But once I brushed that butter on them, y'all, they were just so soft and squishy. And these turned out so good. So clearly, when you take them out of the oven while they're still hot, brush them with butter. And I thought too, well, mine are not, maybe they're not brown enough. I hope they're done. But y'all, I'm telling you, they're perfect. And they're so delicious. I think the guy that made these in the original recipe, he said this was his grandmother's recipe, and then it just brought so many memories back of her. So I thought it was just the sweetest video. I'm going to have to find it so I can link it down there. But y'all, this is them. They are light and fluffy, and it's so dang delicious. You have got to try them. They're worth the time it takes to get them done.